Okay, so earlier I did a rant about using I for interfaces and how important it is to programming and not just programming, accessibility and stuff like that. So I'm going to do a second video because the quality of that video was really bad and I didn't realize how bad it was until after I uploaded it. No clue what happened to my recording software, but for some reason just that video, none of the videos before it, none of the videos after it, just that video, the quality had dropped really, really bad. I assumed something went wrong because I was messing with getting my other two monitors to show up on the recording software. For example, I can do this right now and I can switch between the monitors. You can see that monitor. That was something I wanted to work on and get working because I stream every day and a lot of people can't see those monitors. I want to try to get a transition working. But back to the main objective. Rather than redoing that video precisely, I want to talk about the importance of readability and coding style. Now, everybody's going to have a different coding style. Everybody's going to have a different standardization of way they do their projects, and each project will have its own little system going. A perfect example is just the difference between how Java itself doesn't use I for interfaces and everybody else normally does. That's a coding standard. Java has its own coding standard. Oracle has, Java has its own coding standard. Google has its own coding standard. Microsoft has their own coding standard. Everybody has their own standards, and they're very minor things. Like for example, my standards. I'm a next line for bracket person. That's just how I am. It doesn't really matter to me. If I get on a project and I'm told I need to put it on the same line, I will. It doesn't bother me too much. Although doing like arguments like this does kind of get on my nerves, but there's people that do that. There's people that even do stuff like this, and it's okay. It's how they want to do things. Although I'm one of those believers as well that everybody on the project should come to an agreement on this rather than one guy dictate it. I had that issue with universal electricity in Calclavia. He decided he wanted to be a dictator of coding standards. But back to the subject. When creating a standard, one of the number one things that should be thought about is readability. The same thing goes for everything. Readability should be your number one concern. Not how quickly you can code, not how efficiently you can code, not your personal preference of what you like. Readability should be maximized. To do anything else is to say you're selfish and you're going to be demanding other people utilize your standard because you like it, not because there's a valid reason for it. Just like there's no valid reason for same line or next line. There's no real reason. Saving number of lines of code is not an excuse. That's just you saying, well, you prefer smaller files. In this day and age, hard drives are so massively large compared to class files. I think class files are like in gigabytes, and hard drives are starting to get up in the petabytes now. You can actually buy petabyte hard drives now. They're expensive, but they exist. But yeah, readability should be maximized thing. And this is the reason I got so upset at people saying that I should not be on interfaces. The I there, in my opinion, has everything to do with readability. When I see an interface, say like I rotation, I immediately know it's an interface. I don't need to rely on caller codes because when I'm looking at people's code most of the time, here, I'll show you how I look at people's code most of the time. And this is the reason why I usually get upset at people for interfaces personally, is I will go and I will view somebody's code on GitHub. Tell me, is there going to be a caller code system on GitHub to tell me what an interface is or not? I know GitHub isn't going to implement it because that's a lot of work for them, although it would be cool if they did. But when I'm looking through, this is the VoltsEngine API. This is one of the things I work on. I focus on readability when I'm working on this. When you see I update, you immediately know that this has something to do with updating. I world position, it's a position inside the world. It's all about readability. But what I'll see people do, they remove the I. Now I went about accessibility, my video previous to this one. Part of readability is accessibility. You gotta keep in mind that people are not going to have everything you have. And it's not just about is somebody disabled or something. One of the biggest arguments I saw on Twitter for the I versus no I is people are like, hey, integrated development environments these days have so much technology in them that they can do really, really cool things for you. Like over here, it highlights my interfaces is green and my annotations is green. This is actually a good point to point out. both annotations and interfaces are the same color in IntelliJ, at least in the format I'm using. So one of the people on Twitter say, hey, you can use different color coding to distinguish the difference between things. Well, in that case, I can't. I have to use symbols. The @ symbol is the annotation, the I symbol is that. That's a way to distinguish them in this IDE, but it's not the same. Say, for example, let me go dig up Eclipse. I don't have a hotkey for this one anymore on my computer because of the fact I've just stopped using Eclipse. Just like NetBean. I used to use NetBean for GUI designs. I stopped using it altogether. I found out that the other workspaces I had the same features. Eclipse is in here somewhere. I've got so many IDEs on my computer. I can start sitting here opening up each one and showing you guys that it's different per computer, or it's different per It's different per IDE. It's also different per computer, different per user. Color codes are not going to be consistent. They're not a good way to determine things. So this is, I was working on a patch for CFOH. Notice I'm in here. Notice how few color codes are in my Eclipse. The only thing that's actually color coded is like this, which denotes like your reserved things, and then fields are blue. If I can find, I need to find an API. Look, so my APIs aren't color coded at all. Like nothing in here is color coded. This is Eclipse. And this is actually probably not just Eclipse in general. This might be because I'm viewing a resource. This is one thing I pointed out on Twitter to people. When you're viewing a resource file through an IDE, a lot of times these will not be color coded. So you won't be able to tell what they are based on colors. I also pointed out this is a big problem for people that are colorblind. I'm partially colorblind in my left eye. I have trouble seeing shades of red. Although this doesn't bother me when it comes to programming, I have issues with playing games every so often. It's the reason I actually kind of try to ensure that people that have similar issues or even worse get stood up for. Because even though they're the minority, like somebody on Twitter is like, here, blind people are a minority, therefore we shouldn't have to care about them. I literally wanted to slap that guy because it's, even though they are the fewest number of people, they are still just as important as the next guy. I should make sure that when I'm designing my stuff, that I design my stuff to accommodate them as well. I mean, it's extra work, but in the case of readability, it's not. Adding an I in front of something, see, look at this I, that's one letter, that's one key press, that's not even a full second of work. To save somebody many minutes, even just a normal person like me or like another programmer, it's 5 or 6 seconds of thought process to look at something and go, is that an interface? Because your brain can recognize quicker symbols than it can colors, just because of how it's designed. And people are like, hey, use color codes, use this. It doesn't work as well, and it leaves out some people. One big thing I pointed out is on Twitter on my last video is that, I mean, just blind people in general, not even just colorblind, blind people are going to be using audio processors to do stuff. Now, yes, they can go get software that'll help them out. But that means they would have to have a plugin designed intentionally for that work, or for that IDE workspace that would, instead of going, say, we had an interface called rotation that didn't have the I, it would have to go interface rotation. And then if we had another interface after there called scale, it would have to go interface scale. So it'd be interface rotation, interface scale, interface blah 2, interface blah 3. Where it could have been I rotation, I scale. So instead of like going, it's saying interface in front of there and wasting a couple seconds of that guy's time reading it out, it could have went I rotation, I scale, I movable, I blah 1, I blah 2, I blah 3. And that's quicker, and that helps that guy out. That's one extra character, and you save somebody multiple seconds. And this works for everything. So one of the big things is somebody said we don't need to denote something in order to understand what it is. We denote everything. Every time we name a class, we are denoting what it is. So when we call it abstract, we are denoting it's a prefab. When we call it a tile, we're saying that's so in the example of Minecraft, some of the big terms we use is block, tile entity, item, and entity. Every time we put that in front of something, we're denoting what that object is. You see item So you see like item block, you know that's an item for a block. You see item door, you know that's an item for the door. You see item sword, you know that's an item sword. It's something that goes in your inventory, something you can hold. You see block, it's something that gets placed in the world. You see tile entity, it's the logic processor for that block. You see entity, you know it's something that can be spawned and moved around inside the world. But then when you see people do this, so they'll be like, monster. What is the monster? We know it is a monster, but what is it? I then have to open that class up, and then I'll see it'll extend something like person. What is a person? Then you'll see it extend something like living. What is a living? But if you see entity monster, and then entity person, and then entity living, and then entity living base, you know through that entire extend tree that those are all entities that get placed in the world. This is the importance of readability. I need to be able to look at your object and immediately know what it is. I shouldn't have to read your entire code base. I shouldn't have to like sit there and go, okay, oh, we've read the monster class, a 1,000 line long object. Oh, we now know it's what a monster is. We read the entire person class. Now we know what a person is. We read the entire living class. We now know what a living thing. This is also the importance of Java docs. Those people that say Java docs are not important, this is the exact reason they're important. Because even though we in the Minecraft modding community know what entity is, somebody outside is not going to know it. So there should be a class entity, and it should have a Java doc sitting above it that says, this is a moving object representing something like the player that can exist inside of the world. That's a good way to describe it. You describe what it is. So somebody can even hover over their IDE and see, oh, there's the explanation. That's also part of readability. Another big thing about readability is methods. I don't focus on this as much, but this is also important. One of the biggest things that came out with the Java 8 is that we now have, I think they're called lambdas expressions, where you can go list.stream.forEach like t.do action. Now that's actually more readable. That's really readable, but it's even more readable if I do tt.list and then do t.do action. That's a lot easier to read versus the first line. Now you can read that without a problem. So the first line can be read, the second line can be read. So these aren't really a good example from each other of the difference between these two. When it starts to become a problem, and I see a lot of people do this, and it just, you want to slap them when they do this. So they'll be like, dot filter, and they'll be like t.boolean1 and boolean2 and boolean3 and boolean4 and boolean5. And then they'll be like, hey, we're going to make this a little easier on people to read. So they'll be like, hey, we're going to next line this, and we're going to next line that. But we're going to then call another filter processor on here, and then we're going to repeat the same process because for some reason we're grabbing this huge, massive list, and we want to just keep dropping Boolean comparisons on it when they probably could spend a little bit of time with design and figure out that half these Booleans can go away. And then they'll also be like, next line, we need to map this to, say, t turns into entity player, t, and then they'll be like, collect. And even though the code is compact, readability starts to drop off quickly. Where I could have mimicked this entire thing as a normal for loop, and then I could have even done something better. I could have did if is valid. And I could have like done that, and I could have did valid do action. Although I'm using Notepad for this, this is not the brightest idea to use Notepad. But I could have did something like that. I could have made a method called isValid that did this entire filtering process. And I could have made that a method, I could have documented it, I could have put stuff on it, and you wouldn't have had to work as hard to read it. Because when you do this type of stuff, But people are like, wait, what is Boolean 1? What is Boolean 2? What is Boolean 3? This also removes encapsulation. Encapsulation is a big thing. You should put stuff inside of methods, and that method should have some kind of name. Is valid is probably not a thing. Is killable entity. Can we kill this entity? Readability, I know what that method does without even looking at its content. I know that that method is checking if I can murder that entity with, say, like a gun or something. And I don't have to do anything past that. It's all encapsulated. And my readability is ensured. I can read the code, I can utilize it, I can work on it, and it's not problematic. And this is a really massive problem that I see so many people just fail on because, I mean, in some way, it's because they're too busy trying to get something to work. Like Minecraft modding is a big example of this. People are so focused on just getting content out the door, or trying to impress their buddies or trying to impress their fans. They don't take time to slow down and go, hey, maybe somebody else is looking at our code, maybe somebody else is doing this. And I understand when people like, hey, we don't want to do that. It's a programming thing. You don't start doing that until you're a professional, really. I mean, I've been doing this I've been programming in Java solid for 6 years. Even though I like to say I've been programming my whole life, it's only the last 6 years have I been taking it seriously. And only for the last 3 have I been doing it professionally. It wasn't until I started doing it professionally that I even started taking stuff like this seriously. Because when you start programming, you don't really work on things. You don't really kind of take time to do anything. You just go, I just need it to work. I just need that 3 lines of code to execute. I just need that one action to do. And that's fully understandable. But if you truly want to do something and you want to do it the right way, take the time to slow down and go, hey, how can I make this more readable? How can I make this more functional? How can I make this better? And it may slow you down at first, but as you go, it becomes second nature. Like, I don't even think about certain things. Like, you take this class that it's in the background, I will append event into every single thing. I will append what it is and then what type it is, or what type it is and what it is. And that makes things readable. I document all my stuff now. I do it as second nature because it doesn't just help somebody else. It helps me because every coder who's been coding for more than a year will come to the conclusion that looking at code that's undocumented, even this is code that you've written, will look like Egyptian hieroglyphics. And it will take you multiple minutes to read through to figure out what it does. So document everything. It's important. It helps with readability. Because I can look at this, I don't even have to look at the rest of this. This whole entire part is not important. I can look at that document at the top and say, hey, this is a base for all of my tile events. And I can look at the document here. Hey, this is triggered when the tile loads. This is triggered when the tile unloads. I don't have to read the rest of it. It's encapsulated in perception. All I have to do is maybe like trigger these. Now these are undocumented because I just coded these up. I haven't finished them. But you would, in theory, just really quickly document these up and say, call this from your @link tile entity dot say validate. And there's some other important things to do too. Like here, I put like a document here saying, hey, make sure you call this version because if you don't, it will call world.getTile, which will cause an infinite loop. I had this happen today. Anytime I find bugs, I will make sure I document them as well. Because another developer that comes in behind me wants to utilize the system may have that. That matters to your readability, it matters to your accessibility, it matters to your usage cases. Some of the stuff, by the way, I'm talking about is not all about readability, but it good development practice. It's really cool to keep that in mind of good developer practice. Because I don't care what style you use for your code. I really don't even care what you do with your code. Just take time to kind of develop good developer practices. Things that will make your code better, no matter what. I mean, people can argue all day about what is the correct way to do something, what is the incorrect way to do something, but there is a certain point when is an absolute wrong way to do something. And there is a certain point when you're doing something that's just going to cause efficiency to go down. Those are things to think about. Don't really care about the superficial stuff. I mean, putting the I in front of it is a superficial thing. It is important to think about when you're doing your code. If you're doing internal code, it doesn't matter as much. Somebody pointed out, like, you don't really need the I in front of it. if it's meant to be used like an abstract class. This is one of the big things. This is the reason I think the way Java does it, they treat their stuff like abstract classes, therefore the I is not important. And that's actually a valid reason not to use I, is when it's no longer an interface. But the I should be in front of it if it's an API, and that's something to think about. If you're designing an API for somebody else to use, and this is when it starts to get a little bit more important about what you are doing, especially when you're designing APIs. An API is not for you to use. An API is for everybody else to use. So keep that in mind. Don't think about what you would do. Think about what other people will use your API for. And I'm kind of just getting all directions on here, so I'm going to end this video off. I think from doing this, I'm going to start making some videos on coding style, on methodology, mainly thought process. I don't want to just make tutorials on coding because you can Google to learn to code, but it's really hard to Google to learn to think and code. And I think I'll focus on that. So I'll see you guys all later and hope you enjoyed this.